Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So today I want to talk a little bit about the ban list, and more specifically, what cards could come off of the ban list today. The recent unbanning of Broad Bowl and putting Rapier to 3 got me thinking about this, and this is an exercise that we've done a couple of times before on the channel. I think it's kind of fun, just going through the ban list and going card by card and deciding, does this actually need to be banned, right? So that's what we're going to be doing, and I don't really think I have too much to say going into it. I think we can just dive right on in, right? So we're going to start with Appaloosa here at the top. Now, I think it's only at the top because it's the only banned alternate art card. Everything else seems to go by like release order of the cards themselves, but since Appaloosa is at the top, we'll start by talking about her. Now, I am definitely glad that she's gone. I think there was a period of time in Master Duel's history where she wasn't like too much of a problem, like necessarily ban worthy, but I think we passed that time at the very least around when like Snake Eye and Fiendsmith were hitting the scene. But arguably before that, Appaloosa was also ban worthy. It is very generic, it is a lot of negates in one card, and I definitely understand, why people weren't super pleased about having to face against Appaloosa. I think that in 2026 Yu-Gi-Oh! That this card should absolutely stay banned. I don't really see a world where, it becomes okay to release this card, unless the game gets so power crept in like 5 years that, a card like Appaloosa is nothing. But given that it's multiple monster negates and again completely generic, I have a difficult time seeing the world where that's the case. But, Yu-Gi-Oh's power creep always surprises us, so maybe we will come to that point at some point in the future, but it's definitely not going to be anytime soon. Okay, Catapult Turtle. I think this card, as well as one of the next ones coming up here, Cannon Soldier, are definitely ban worthy. So this might fly in the face of some things I've said before, right? This idea of banning these burn FTK cards, even if they're not meta viable. Because my stance on the ban list has always been, well, if it is not like overrunning the meta, then it should be allowed. For the most part. And I think one of the exceptions is going to be the style of burn cards. I think it's important in, thoughts and philosophies to be nuanced and flexible, and I think that these cards that like burn your opponent but don't really do anything else for the competitive environment are 100% fine to ban, right? Like, I'm fine on banning something like Broad Bowl because like I'm sure it does enable some amount of FTKs, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to be more down to the burn cards that are actually setting the opponent's life points to 0. Whereas something like Broad Bowl does still allow for some interesting, not, tier 1 strategies, like somewhat off meta, right? Whereas a card like Catapult Turtle or Cannon Soldier, like, is never going to be used for anything besides FTKing. One card I'd love to see in addition to this list is Submersible Carrier Arrow Shark. A lot of people have been really upset in the past about Lightsworn FTK and talked about banning tier limits cards like Kikkalos, but to me, I don't understand why you'd want to ban Kikkalos, which has a viable meta deck that's not breaking the meta, as opposed to the card that's burning people and isn't used to do anything else, which is Arrow Shark. I think it's a lot of people who simply don't like tier limit want it to catch the stray, but I personally think that's bad ban list philosophy. But yeah, these burn cards, as mentioned, they're never going to do anything besides an unreactive FTK. Similar to the idea of, a Floodgate. Like, it's never going to do anything interactive with the opponent, so why allow it? So, Catapult Turtle, Cannon Soldier, totally fine with these being banned. And cards like them. Cyber Sign, I'm also fine with this being banned. I always forget this card was actually legal in Master Duel for some time, but then Sprite came out. And, yeah, being able to summon this off of Sprite Elf and dump it off of Sprint to revive was just a little bit too strong, given how wide of a range of things it can summon from the extra deck. I think this card is definitely ban worthy. I think it probably should have just stayed banned, but to be fair, it wasn't doing anything wrong for a while. But I'm also a big fan of only banning cards like right as they become problems. I know a lot of people talk about preemptively banning stuff before it's an issue, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's pretty poor ban list philosophy. I think Block Dragon's a pretty good example of it. Sure, right now Block Dragon is actually seeing a lot of viable competitive use in Magnet Warrior, but long before Magnet Warrior, Block Dragon was banned. in Master Duel and TCG, but not OCG, where it didn't do anything for a long time. Even now, with Magnet Warrior and Block Dragon being legal in the OCG, that has been a strategy that's been more or less power crept by other, more recent decks. So, yeah, I mean, if in Master Duel Magnet Warrior starts overrunning the meta, then I think it's fine to talk about unbanning Block Dragon. But again, I've always been of the mindset that if a deck is not overrunning the meta and is not just like an FTK or something, then you should just allow people to explore their options. I know people are going to make the argument of like, well, an inboard with a floodgate and multiple negates is pretty much an FTK. It's not the same thing. Stop pretending like it is. It's just not. You're wrong. But yeah, no, I think that Cyber Sign is definitely ban-worthy for sure. Graceful Charity, obviously ban-worthy. Don't feel like I need to explain that. Pot of Greed, obviously ban-worthy. Don't feel like I need to explain that. These simple, I mean, especially Graceful Charity, which can cycle cards into the graveyard, not even as a cost, triggering discard effects. But I think even well beyond that, these generic spell cards that just gives you more advantage are not something that's good to have in the game. Ultimate Offering. This one I think could come back, and I've talked about this multiple times in these style of videos, right? Because think about it. Ultimate Offering has to be set and then flipped up, like you can't use it to pop off on turn 1. And even if you could, there aren't really that many decks that super benefit from having essentially infinite normal summons, right? Even the deck that cares the most about normal summons, Flaunderies, can already normal summon all at once without a card like Ultimate Offering. And when you're thinking about using this card on your opponent's turn, it's like, there's not really a ton you can do unless you're just summoning a bunch of stuff with quick effects, right? But even then, that involves opening this card and setting it on turn 1 and not having it destroyed, by an opponent's card effect or something like that. The hoops that you have to jump through to get this to actually do something nasty is actually pretty remarkable. I think especially if this card came back at 1, it would not do anything. I kind of don't think you'd do anything at 3 either, but that would be a lot more consistent and maybe people would kind of be more willing to push the envelope. But if this card came back at 1 right now, I don't think it would do anything at all. I think Ultimate Offering is actually fine to come back. Last Will, definitely not fine to come back. Holy, turn any of your monsters into Sangan. Way better than Sangan, because it doesn't add a monster with 1500 less attack from your deck to your hand. It special summons it to the field. It also doesn't care how your card was sent to the graveyard. No, this card can never come back. Confiscation, I don't think should ever come back, because it just gives you free information. It's just like nastier triple tack in a way. Because you don't have to obviously wait for the condition of your opponent activating an effect. Yeah, this is absolutely still ban-worthy. Like with Duel, I mean, if Confiscation is ban-worthy, this card is twice as ban-worthy for being able to rip 2 cards. Forceful Sentry is like, doesn't even cost life points, and is the actual triple tack effect of putting the card back into the deck. Giant Trunade is definitely ban-worthy, more so than Heavy Storm, which sounds a little bit weird, but returning all spell and trap cards from the field to the hand actually does enable you to reuse a number of soft once per turn effects on spell or trap cards, and in the distant past, this was used to facilitate a number of FTKs, so I think Giant Trunade should actually stay banned. Painful, I mean, this is just the most broken spell card, arguably in existence. Definitely, if there was one card that could never be unbanned, it's absolutely a Painful Choice. Imperial Order was legal when Master Duel first came out, but they very quickly realized how big of a mistake that was, and subsequently banned it, or I think it should stay that way. Premature Burial actually recently got unbanned in Paper Play. Was it the OCG or TCG? I think it was TCG, right? I don't remember if OCG still has this card banned or not, but it's interesting because for a long while I would have thought of this as a card that could not be unbanned, but I'm also like an old school Yu-Gi-Oh player, so when I look at a lot of these older banned cards, my mind is definitely still fixated on the past, where I see Premature Burial and I'm like, oh, you could loop that infinitely with Bryonic by bouncing it back to your hand and reviving monsters, and it's like, okay, yeah, that was scary in, like, what, 2009, 10? But in 2026, it's really not that big of a deal. I think the best use case for this card is decks that already care about equip spells, like Mikanko or Infernoble. I know sometimes plays Living Fossil, you could just play Premature Burial instead, but even then, it's only a slight upgrade. It's not really that big of a deal. So I'm gonna try to remove my old school Yu-Gi-Oh brain from some of these cards before just jumping to say they could never come back, because I'm pretty sure I have said that about Premature Burial in these videos in the past, but thinking more objectively, yeah, this card could, I think, totally come back and it would be fine. Anti-Spell Fragrance. As I mentioned before, you know, Floodgates I'm generally fine with being banned or limited, even if they're not currently, like, being very disruptive in the meta. Because one thing you have to realize is that Floodgates were at one point very disruptive to the top tier of the meta. When Master Duel first came out, not only was Imperial Order and Vandy's Emptiness legal at 1, Skill Drain, Rivalry, Gozen, Tickboo, pretty much all of the Floodgates were also at 3. And in a best of 1 format, that was a huge problem. The main reason Eldritch was a top tier deck in Master Duel's first few months was because it had access to so many different Floodgates. So I think there is a critical mass of Floodgates that needs to be hit, and I'm totally fine with it. I mean, obviously I don't find engaging with Floodgates to be the most exciting gameplay, so Fragrance being at 0 I think is totally fine. Courtesy of Return being at 0 is fine. This card is completely broken, not once per turn at all. It doesn't matter even if it's at 1, if you open it in a lot of decks, it will just put you way far ahead. Yeah, that can't come back. Cold Wave, I don't really think this can come back either, just because it locks your opponent out of spell and trap cards going into their turn. All spell and trap cards, it's just a little bit gross. Again, even if it were at 1, it would really polarize any game where a player opens it. Amazoness Archer, again, I'm totally fine with these cards that burn and will never do anything else, and as a result, would never see competitive play. Like, Amazoness Archer being banned does not hinder the capability of an Amazoness deck. That's why I'm fine with bans like this. Jowgen is a Floodgate that I'm fine with being banned. Also, being a light spellcaster, it's really easy to access from the deck via a number of things, but Albion Sanctifier was the big one that got it banned, and I'm fine with it. I think it's fine to be banned. Fiber Jar. This card isn't particularly strong in terms of sheer power level. I think this card, I guess, could come back, but listen, as somebody who's actually, like, who's played old Yu-Gi-Oh! And has actually seen Fiber Jar resolve multiple times and had it happen against them, you do not want to play against this card. Even if it's not particularly strong, it's just so time-consuming. Granted, in Master Duel, I guess it's not as bad where everything automatically shuffles back and gives you your hand, but in paper play, it's like, oh my god, I gotta gather up all my cards and shuffle them up and then, like, draw 5. It just takes forever. And then, especially when your opponent's on a game plan that's resolving Fiber Jar multiple times per duel, it's a slog. It's not fun. So yeah, this card I don't think is super strong, but by sheer virtue of being not fun, should probably just stay banned. One of the few instances where I personally feel this way, obviously, you know, I've made a lot of comparisons in the past that cards shouldn't be banned for strength, they should be banned for, or they shouldn't be banned for being unfun, they should be banned for power levels. So if you disagree about Fiber Jar coming back, I actually don't blame you at all for that. And again, I don't think Fiber Jar at 1 would break the game. I think it would be fine. I just think it would be annoying. Smoke Grenade to the Thief. Ugh. Yeah, I mean, I get it. The only reason I'm disappointed for this being banned is that I own not 1 but 2 Royal copies, and being a Legacy UR, I'm not able to dismantle it. So I've just got 2, at one point, competitively viable Royal URs that are just gonna forever sit in my collection, but it is what it is. This got banned, this was legal in Master Duel, but it got banned around when Power Tool Braver Dragon came out, because that card could really easily abuse this to, you know, look at your opponent's hand and discard, which, as we've mentioned before, is a really, really strong effect. And I do think this does end up being ban-worthy, just because of how accessible it is through Braver Dragon. It's also very different from a quick place, or I mean, a quick spell like Premature Burial, which is putting more bodies on your board, right? Even if you're able to loop that, there are so many decks out there that can just spam bodies on board, but this hand ripping, especially by looking at the opponent's hand, is totally different. I think this is ban-worthy. Royal Oppression is definitely a ban-worthy Floodgate, especially because it's really easy for just about any meta deck to play this. Like, back in the day of Teledad, you would play through Royal Oppression. What you would do is you would just set up your, you know, Stardust Dragon and Dark Arm Dragon, and then set Royal Oppression, then your opponent couldn't set up on you. Just makes going first way too good when you happen to open this card. And the fact that it negates and destroys is actually really rough for the person who has to play against it. Yeah, I think it's definitely still ban worthy. So everything I said about Fiber Jar applies, I think, a million times over to last turn, except last turn does have some amount of like OTKs and stuff that are associated with it, but this card is way too much of a headache to be legal. It should just stay banned. Mirage of Nightmare. Okay, in the past, I have talked about this card being able to come back, and I think the main counterpoint that I heard against it, which at the time I think was fair, was that it'd be way too good in like Runic, for example, and potentially other control decks as well. Runic in particular, of course, because you can add the quick play spells and then use them on your opponent's turn. But is that actually that OP right now in 2026? I'm looking at this effect, and again, I could be wrong about this. Is one of those cards where I feel most uncertain about, so feel free to, you know, sound off in the comments if I'm wrong about this. But I'm looking at Mirage of Nightmare, I'm reading the effect, and I don't think this is like that bad. I mean, yeah, you could say like, well, it just draws a bunch of hand traps going into your opponent's turn, and then, you know, you can load up your graveyard with relevant stuff going into your turn. But like, it's not very often you'll get to do both of those things. I guess to be fair, yeah, this does let you just draw potentially into a bunch of hand traps, if nothing else, going into your opponent's turn. And maybe for that reason, it still shouldn't be allowed. 4 is a lot of cards. And a lot of combos do exhaust their whole hand. Yeah, you know what, the more I think about it, the more I think this probably is ban worthy, because even at 1, if you like do your whole turn 1 combo, and then play this going first and draw 4 going into your opponent's standby phase, even if you have 2 cards left in hand, you're just drawing 2. That's still a lot of opportunities to find hand traps after you've already cycled through your engine. Yeah, okay, I think for being maybe a bit too polarizing on turn 1, this might still be ban worthy, actually. Trap Dust Shoot is definitely still ban worthy for the same reason as a lot of the other cards we talked about that look at your opponent's hand. Granted, this one is a trap card, so it's a little bit slow, but at the same time, if you go first, you can just set it and then use it on your opponent's you know, draw phase after they draw a card. So yeah, I think this does end up being too polarizing for going first. Tuned Cannon Soldiers, like regular Cannon Soldier, that's fine. Terraforming, I think at the end of the day, field spells are just too good in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Being able to search up things or just being key components of a deck strategy for this card to be legal. I think it could be fine at 1. I think it's at 1 still, at least in TCG, maybe OCG as well. And I think it could be fine at 1 in Master Duel, but at the same time, like, Field Spell is such a wide swath of really good cards to be able to search that I also think it's fine to be banned. This is one of those few cards where, like, I don't really have strong feelings of it being at 0 or 1, either way, but I think just to be safe, it could definitely just stay at 0. Card of Demise is interesting. This card got banned mainly for being used in, like, stun decks as a way to refuel. But with stun having lost so many floodgates, I don't think this card is, like, as backbreaking as it once was. I think this card would be fine if it got unbanned and put at 1. I think it would be fine even if it was at 3. I don't think it would make stun, like, a tier 1 threat overnight. That said, because it is mostly used in floodgate-based decks, I guess I'm fine with it being banned, but this creates a really interesting conundrum, right? Like, it's, like, I'm fine with cards being banned if they're not meta, you know, a tier 1 deck, if they're, like, an FTK or floodgates, right? But what about these cards that directly support those strategies and haven't really been used in anything else? It's a very interesting point, but I think at the end of the day, this card could come back, at the very least at 1, and it really wouldn't be an issue. Kaiser Coliseum, it's a floodgate, let's keep it banned. Don't really have much else to say. Magical Scientist, not once per turn, no real restrictions, I guess, aside from the fact that the fusion monster can't attack the opponent's life points directly, which is by far, like, the most loose requirement. I mean, do I have to say how broken this card is? Like, it's definitely ban-worthy. Mass Driver is a burn FTK card, so let's keep it banned. Butterfly Dagger Elma just loops way too easily. If it said when this card is destroyed by your opponent and sent to the graveyard while equipped, then this card would be totally fine to be legal. But the fact that you can pop your own Elma and immediately add it back, and then equip it, and then pop it, and then equip it, and then pop it. Yeah, even in, like, 2005 or whatever, that was way too good. I can only imagine the things you could do with this now if it was unbanned. Dimension Fusion. Even though both players can summon their banished monsters, obviously you're going to use this on turn 1 when your opponent doesn't have any banished monsters. So yeah, way too good. Definitely ban-worthy. Self-destruct button, I think, is absolutely ban-worthy. Even though it's a card that doesn't in any way win the game, I think that's actually the reason why it's ban-worthy. To have a card which creates an entire deck whose strategy is to draw the game is honestly just kind of an insult to anybody you're playing against, because you're literally just wasting both you and their time. Like, yeah, you might like giggle and go, I made the game a draw, but like anybody else you're playing against just gonna like roll their eyes and be like, cool, can I play an actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh now? Like, yeah, absolutely ban-worthy. Sixth Sense, wholly ban-worthy. Do I need to say it? Even though it's a trap card and it's slow, you get to draw a ton of cards or mill a ton of cards. Definitely way too good. Return from the Different Dimension, even though it's a trap card, still has a lot of the same strengths as Dimension Fusion, and I think is still ban-worthy. This one, there's a little bit more room to discuss from Dimension Fusion of it coming back, just because, again, it is a trap card and so slow, but I still think it's just a little bit too polarizing, honestly. Magical Explosion, burn card that FTKs, keep it banned. Divine Sword, Phoenix Blade. Much like Butterfly Dagger Elma, ends up being really, really easy to loop from your graveyard back to your hand repeatedly. Now for this one, you do at least have to banish 2 warrior monsters from your graveyard every time you do it, but with a deck like Infernoble, that's really not that big of a deal. Now what is Infernoble doing with the Phoenix Blade by looping it? I am not actually super sure off the top of my head. This one, I guess for that reason, might be a little bit more fine to come back, but at the same time, you know, it's created a lot of FTKs in the past just by existing, and I think it's fine to keep it banned ultimately. Dandelion, oh my god, this card has to stay banned, which is a shame because I love this card. This is one of my favorite old school Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but it doesn't care how it gets sent to the graveyard, and the only restrictions on the tokens are they cannot be tributed for a tribute summon, and even then that's only during the turn those tokens are summoned. So yeah, this definitely needs to stay at 0. Life Equalizer just enables FTKs, it's fine to be banned. Barrier statues are floodgates, I'm totally fine with those being banned. Instant Fusion is a microcosm of the problem of Magical Scientists. It's still way too good because it can summon a lot of fusion monsters, including Tearlament's Kitkalos, and the restriction of the card not being able to attack and then destroy during the end phase is a very moot point. You know, there are people who make the argument of, well, Tearlament's Kitkalos is just really, really good, just keep it banned, but Instant Fusion has a lot of targets it can summon, and I don't think it's right to just ban Kitkalos and have Tearlaments not be viable as an archetype, just to keep Instant Fusion around, which, yeah, really isn't that interesting of an addition to the game relative to a whole archetype. Grinder Golem, was banned in the past for enabling FTKs. I guess you could still make the argument that it's a really easy way to set up multiple tokens to go into link summons, but you're still giving your opponent a 3k body to do that. I don't know. Grinder Golem's a weird one for me because I played when this card is released. Like, this is a card from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, but this card got banned during Master Rule 4 Link format, which I didn't play during. So I'm actually not the most familiar with Grinder Golem's use case in that format, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to speak on this. This should probably just still stay banned, but if it's not enabling an FTK and all you're doing is getting 2 tokens to go into a Link summon by giving your opponent a 3k body, I think that's fine in 2026. But again, I think this could set up FTKs, so I just don't know enough about this card to make a solid claim on it. Burn FTK card is fine to be banned. Substitute not being once per turn, I think makes this fine to be banned. You can just cycle through a deck full of frog monsters. It's a really easy way to deck thin off of like almost no, you know, hard requirements at all, because there's no cost. I mean, you have to tribute a monster, but you can just tribute the frogs that you're summoning from your deck. Like, yeah, being able to cycle through your deck that easily is just way too good. If this said once per turn, this card would be completely fine, but it doesn't, so it's not. Summon Limit, Floodgate, I think is fine to be banned. Mind Master has the same problem as Substitute, where it's not once per turn, so it needs to stay banned. Also, it summons that level 4 lower psychic monsters, which I think is way scarier than frog monsters. Secret Village is a floodgate that recently got banned. I'm actually glad for it, because this would have been really annoying to see an elf note, but yeah, it's fine to be banned. Tempest Magician, FTKs, fine to be banned. Ido, the Supreme Magical Force. This is going to be probably one of my more controversial takes, but I actually don't like this card is banned when it's on the ban list because of Branded Expulsion and Albion Sanctifier. Now, Branded Expulsion got banned, but I've said it a million times on this channel, and I'll say it again. I think Albion Sanctifier needs to join it. There are a lot of cards like Ido that have these kind of restrictions that are intended to limit you, the player who summons it, and we're not intended to be summoned to the opponent's field. I think being able to summon any like light or dark monster to the opponent's field as easily as Sanctifier does shouldn't be allowed, but that's definitely one of my more subjective takes about the ban list. To be fair, Sanctifier is not doing anything ridiculous or overrunning the meta right now, so there is a strong argument to keep it around. I will 100% acknowledge that. I don't agree with it, but I think the strong argument is there. Because outside of exactly Albion Sanctifier, Ido is not a bannable card. This card is terrible. It's never seen competitive play except to be cheated onto your opponent's field. And I think the card, and that to me is really the crux of the issue, right? This card has been around since like 2010 and did not do a single thing to make it even worthy of being glanced at, let alone considered to be banned, until Branded Expulsion and Albion Sanctifier came along. To me, that makes it really, really obvious that that is the issue. And I'm not even talking about Branded as a whole. I'm just specifically talking about Sanctifier. Branded can have all of its other tools legal at the level they are now, and it's completely fine. I think you could even give them, you know, some stuff back after banning Sanctifier to help them out a little bit. I just personally don't like Sanctifier being able to cheat monsters onto the opponent's board. But again, that's very subjective and opinionated, and if you disagree, I don't blame you at all. Naturia Rosewhip, one of the more recent bans, is a bit of a floodgate, isn't it? Ban-worthy because it's so easily accessible in the Cool Tune deck. I think I'm fine with this. Again, Naturia Rosewhip was not really doing anything at all, like, period, from its time of release until Cool Tune was putting it on their board. Even when Naturia was meta competitive in Master Duel, it was not using Rosewhip, so I think this ban is fine. It's one that only is cropping up as an easy-to-access floodgate and doesn't affect the impact of Naturia as an archetype by having it banned. Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis is a burn ban card, or a burn FTK card, so it should be banned. Archlord Christia is another card that kind of got banned because of Sanctifier. You could make the argument this was ban-worthy outside of Sanctifier as well. I would disagree with that. I think this card is fine, or was fine, before Sanctifier came along, but this one's a lot more debatable than something like Ido. Fishborg Blaster, not once per turn, so it's definitely ban-worthy. Level Eater, oh my god, not once per turn, it's ban-worthy. Jin, Releaser of Rituals, is just a really annoying floodgate. I think it's ban-worthy. A Pointer the Red Lotus, I think this card was actually fine. You could make the argument that it was a polarizing turn 1 card like some of the other ones I've talked about, like Trap Dust Shoot, Confiscation, Delinquent Duo. But the main difference here is that your opponent does get the card back. It's only banished for the 1 turn. And if you've already set up on your opponent's, like, you know, you've already set up your turn 1 combo line, and then you're also setting a Pointer of the Red Lotus, then I think you've already pretty much got the game on lock in a lot of scenarios, right? I guess to be fair, you could make the argument of like, it doesn't really matter if it simply banishes for 1 turn. If you have that turn 1 combo set up, then it's as devastating as something like Trap Dust Shoot. But I don't know, this one's really borderline. I can actually see both arguments here. I kind of think it'd be fine if it came back. Like, this card was not seeing a ton of play while it was legal, but that could change. It's interesting. I think if it came back at 1, this card would not see any play at all. If it came back at 3, that might be a different story, but bringing this back at 1 I think would be fine. But again, I can also see the argument of leaving it banned. Tyrant Neptune just enables FTKs. I think it's fine to keep it banned. Vanity's Emptiness is a floodgate. That's totally fine to keep banned. It's way too easy to use this one generically, in particular, like even outside of stun decks, because you can use it for your opponent's turn, and then if you need to start popping off, all you have to do is send any card from your field or deck to the graveyard, and then it'll pop itself, and then you can combo off. So yeah, I think this card is 100% ban-worthy. Wind Up Hunter. is banned because it allows windups to hand rip on turn 1. But is that big of a deal? I think this card would be totally fine to come back. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, even if windup isn't good, it's not good for a deck to have the ability to hand rip on turn 1. And that is definitely comparable to an FTK, but still a lot different. I think it'd be fine, honestly. I really don't think it'd be an issue. Just because, like, in order to set up that kind of a combo, windup would have to play... One, you have to play windup, which is a, like, lower rogue bordering on casual power level deck. 2, you would have to play through so many hand traps to be able to set up this combo line. I think it's fine. I honestly think Windup Hunter could come back. That one I'm willing to be wrong about, but I'm going to still stand firm that at the very least at 1, this card would be fine to come back. I mean, 1's really all you need because of Zenmaity, but anyway. Vol Chain is way too good. A generic rank 4 that sends any card from the deck to the graveyard? No, thank you. Shockmaster is way too good, even if it's 3 level 4s. Being able to lock your opponent out of monster effects is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, any of them really, but especially when you consider that this can be used on monster effects is like ridiculous. Eclipse Wyvern. This one could actually come back, right? This one's legal in the OCG. I think the big reason this one is still suspect is because the fact it's not once per turn. Neither of the effects are. But, like, I still don't think that's that big of a deal. I mean, this card has been legal in the OCG for quite some time and has not been an issue as far as like making Rocket/Dragon Link decks too strong. So I think this could also come back in Master Duel. Ouroboros relatively recently got banned for its ability to hand rip on turn 1, and it's a little bit too easy to make with 3 level 4s, especially with the advent of Ryzeal and Onomot and all that stuff. I think this one is still ban-worthy. Dweller is, I think, also still ban-worthy. Generic rank 4, very strong floodgate effect for the opponent's turn. Yeah, I'm fine to keep it at 0. Give me Puppet Nightmare, copy and paste everything I said about Ido here. And yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. I, again, still think Sanctifier should be banned and not these cards, but I get it. Obedient Schooled, banned because of Yummy, and I think that's completely fine. Soul Charge, way too good, just summons out a bunch of monsters from the graveyard. There's a reason we call certain cards with a similar effect a Soul Charge for certain archetypes, right? This card is just way too strong. Artifact Scythe, I think, was definitely ban-worthy and should stay banned for its Floodgate effect and just how many decks can incidentally access it really easily. Elder Entity Norden. I think this one's fine, right? If Instant Fusion is banned, I think Norden can come back. I remember one time I said this in one of these videos and somebody made a point that it could be brought out. Oh, I'm trying to remember what they said. I don't remember. But unless I'm missing something, because again, I wasn't really playing the game while this card was legal, so I don't have that much experience with it at all. But, I mean, I'm reading the effect, and I'm thinking again, Instant Fusion's banned, Cyber Sign's banned. I kind of think this card is fine, but I'm very open to being wrong about that. Oh, Rongo Bongo. Banned in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel for being just a really annoying towers to power over. I kind of think this card would be fine if it came back, but I understand why it's banned. But I think it could be legal and it would be fine. I mean, I guess to be fair, because it was played in Phantom Knights in 2022, it is a little bit generic with level 4 warrior monsters. There are more decks that could spam summon it out. It doesn't need to come back, but I think it could come back and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. This enables FTKs for super heavy samurai decks, so I think it's fine to be banned. Outer Entity Azathoth. Outer Entity monster, see some of your opponent can activate. Oh yeah, it's yeah, this style of effect, like Utopic Future. There's another Utopic Future monster that does this too, where when this card is exceed summoned, your opponent can't use monster effects the rest of the turn. So the idea here, of course, is that you can just summon this on your opponent's turn and then you lock them out of monster effects, which I think is too good, as we talked about with Shockmaster. Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, banned for being able to send 3 dragons with different names to the deck to the graveyard as a cost. That's probably still ban-worthy, I think. Granted, you do have to jump through a lot of hoops to get to this. Because this was banned shortly, like, around Dragon Ruler format, right? For being able to set up a graveyard full of Dragon Rulers, which is not that big of a deal. Like, in order to utilize this in something like Dragon Link or a Rocket deck, you'd have to make a rank 8 and then stack Dark Matter Dragon on top, right? This one, like, I'm really trying to imagine what 3 dragons you would send from your deck to the graveyard that would really, really be way too powerful. This one might actually be fine to come back. As always, if there's something I'm missing, like a really obvious interaction that makes this stupid broken, feel free to leave it in the comments, but I think this one might actually be fine to come back. Utopic Zexal, yeah, this is the one I was trying to think of, where you summon it on your opponent's turn. Or actually, this one just says, once per opponent's turn, quick effect, detach exceeds material from this card. Your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated this turn. Huh? What? Why? Why would you think this is an okay effect to print? Yeah, 100% ban-worthy. Oh, Calamity. Yeah, I mean, obviously just ban-worthy for the same reasons we've been discussing. Beatrice, much like Laval Chain, ends up being way too easy to make for being able to send any card from your deck to the graveyard. 100% ban-worthy. Bishop Vulcan, never used for anything other than dumb FTKs. It's ban-worthy. Gofu the Vague Shadow. Special summon from your hand where you control no monsters and you summon 2 Vague Shadow tokens, but they can't be attributed to use a synchro material. Yeah, so this was banned because you could just use it and the tokens to link spam. But I think that's fine, right? Like, nowadays? What deck are you actually going to play this in to summon it in the tokens and then link summon? They're Dark Winged Beasts. Which doesn't... I don't know. I think this one's actually probably fine. Again, if nothing else, this could be one of those, like, bring it back at 1. Because at 3, yeah, it becomes a lot more consistent. But as a 1-of, like, what link spam decks are going to play 1 Gofu to get some more bodies on board? I don't really think that that's super viable. Especially because you can't, like, even summon this from deck to get the effect. It has to be special summoned from your hand. And it can only be special summoned from your hand while you control no monsters. So you'd have to search or open it at the very beginning of your combo line. Which I think as a 1-of makes this not very appealing. Again, as a 3-of, it becomes a lot more consistent, but I think you could bring this back at 1 and try it out. It'd probably be fine. Totally awesome. I think that this card has to stay dead for a couple of reasons, actually. 1 is Sprite and 2 is Bahamut Shark. This is one of those cases where it's not even like, oh, ban this card because it could unbalance other things in the future. Unbanning this card would just actually unbalance things right now. This card is still, I think, probably a little bit too good when used in conjunction with Sprite Elf. Just having multiple untargetable Omni Negates. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too good. I think if it were only being used with Bahamut Shark, that would probably be fine right now, but... yeah, I think that this card should stay banned. I mean, if it's between this and Sprite Elf just enables so many more interesting things to happen in the format that I think totally should stay banned, personally. Broad Bull is about to come back. Although I think I have in the past said that this card could probably come back and it would be fine. I think, but don't quote me on that. True King of All Calamities. It's just kind of one of those, like, your opponent can't do anything effects on their turn. So, I think it's fine to stay banned. Set Rotation. Quick play spells at 2 fields with different names from your deck to the field, while either of those, neither player can activate or set other field spells. This one's fine. Well, no, it's like, well, either of those cards remain set on the field, and neither player can activate or set other... oh, that other than those two, so you can still flip up the one that you set up. Okay, so this card is essentially a terraforming. You could make a lot of the similar arguments of it being banned. 5 Rainbow Magician was a floodgate that recently got banned, and I think it's fine to stay there. Baguska is a bit of a floodgate itself, but it's a generic rank 4, meaning a lot of decks can access it, especially if their combo line just doesn't end up playing out. So I think it's fine to be banned. Diablosis makes Kashtira just stupid powerful and not fun to interact with, so I think it's fine for this to be banned. Molnir. Okay, so this one got banned because of the rank 5 that puts stuff on your opponent's board, the Imperial Princess Conqueri, which I'm going to make the same argument here. I think it's Imperial Princess Conqueri that should be on the ban list. I don't think that putting monsters on your opponent's field, like there are just so many of these effects where they're intended to lock you out of doing stuff, but by cheating them onto the opponent's field, you just lock them out of doing stuff. I think there's an argument to be made that putting monsters from your graveyard to your opponent's field could be interesting game design, but I think we've come way too far in Yu-Gi-Oh! And have way too many of these kinds of effects for that to be the case. And it's also really hyper niche, so I think it's fine to hold off on exploring that line of strategy, unless you make an archetype dedicated to it that only puts its own archetype monsters onto the opponent's field. That is totally fine. But being able to generically put stuff on the opponent's field, even if the restriction is there, like level 5 monster, like with Conqueri, I think it's still a bit much. So I think Imperial Princess should be here instead of Mjolnir, but either way, I get it. Halki Fibrax. Okay. This might be my hottest take of this video. I think this card is unban worthy. I think this card would be fine at 1 right now. Because, okay, at the very least, let me say this. Let me say this much. At the very least, Halki Fibrax into Auroradon, that deck, if that deck as it existed in 2022 was legal now, in 2026, it would not be a tier 1 deck. I think it would be maybe a tier 3 deck at best. Because the combo line is so easy to stop with hand traps. I don't even know if it would be tier 1. Because here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't even realize is you can still do Auroradon spam strategies. You just need to use Galaxy Eyes Tomahawk instead of Halki Fibrax, which is legal in Master Duel. Tomahawk plus Auroradon has been legal in Master Duel literally the entire time. But it's simply a strategy that has been power crept to oblivion. Not even necessarily in terms of its end board, but again, in the actual combo line. There's only more and more hand traps and, you know, going second disruption tools out there, and as more and more of them come out, the Halki Fibrax Auroradon line looks worse and worse. I mean, it's stopped by any one of these hand traps. Effect Veiler, Imperm, Ash Blossom. I'm pretty sure Ghost Spell does it because it does interact with the graveyard a lot. That one I'm a little less certain on. But Nibiru, you know, a lot of these most common hand traps. Ghost Ogre would 100% stop this line. A lot of these very, very common hand traps are able to completely stop the entire combo line by themselves. And a lot of people have said in the past, like, oh, Halki Fibrax Auroradon stuff is too generic. It's not generic at all. You have to build an entire deck around that combo line. It's not like you can splash it in with another engine. If anything, you could maybe splash another engine into that style of deck, but it's not the kind of strategy. Again, if the 2022 Halki Auroradon decks were legal right now, they would not be competitively viable. They would not be a tier 1 or even tier 2. I think they might barely be a tier 3 deck. And before I started this video, I was actually looking through a list of tuner monsters that are level 3 or lower. And I don't think even now, I don't know if there's a better thing you can do with Halki Fibrax than going into an Auroradon line, right? I guess you could, like, Cool Tune is, of course, the big deck right now. And I know people might think, oh, but this can just pull any Cool Tune monster out of your deck. But it's like, how are you summoning this in Cool Tune? Like, you would need to be in a situation where you can link off 2 of your monsters, but you haven't been locked into only being able to summon tuners yet. And you would also need to be in a scenario where having your tuner plus your other monster isn't just full Cool Tune combo already, right? So I guess if the stars align and all of that happens, then yeah, you could use Halk in something like Cool Tune. But I think that, honestly, that's really not that feasible. I guess you could make the argument of splashing something like Cool Tune into another deck with Halk, right? Like, you could use another deck. Their engine could spit out the materials to make Halki Fibrax. Then you pull, like, Rekko out of the deck. But even then, Rekko can't, like, search. You would still have to tune with another monster in hand. Same with any Cool Tune monster. I don't know. Again, super hot take. I know people are going to disagree with me, But I've thought about it, and I could be missing something easily. But I think Halki Firex could come back and it would not be a problem. That's my take. That's my hot take right there. Ibly, just kind of one of those floodgate effects that just really ends up getting put on your opponent's field. Does this do it itself? I'm trying to remember, actually. This card in its owner's control, special to your opponent's field. Yeah. So, yeah, I think this card is still ban-worthy. Paradise Smasher, I think, is definitely ban-worthy for just locking your opponent out of plays on their turn. Topologic Gumblar Dragon. If another monster is special in the zone, let's discard 1 or 2 random cards. Your opponent discards the same number. Yeah, I mean, this being generic, I think makes it still just a little bit too good for those discards. Guard Dragon LP. Yeah, I think this card is probably still just a little bit too good for the Dragon decks. And same with Agripane as well. Any one from your extra deck. Wow, Guard Dragons are insane. Oh, Mystic Mine. The ultimate Floodgate. I mean, there are better Floodgates out there, debatably, but this one is definitely one of the more polarizing ones, rather. Yeah, it's still ban-worthy, though. Here's Appaloosa again. We already talked about her up top. Union Carrier. Man, if this just put Union monsters in the Spell Trap zone, it would have been completely fine, but it doesn't, so it's not. Link Cross. I think it sets up way too many bodies, and it's probably still just ban-worthy. Oh, Chaos Ruler, my beloved. I cannot objectively talk about this card, because I want to launch this tirade of how this card is not that bad compared to what everyone else is doing, and would be completely fine, but I don't know if that's true. If I'm being honest with myself, I don't know if that's true. I have to pass on evaluating this one. I cannot evaluate it fairly and unbiasedly. Oh my god, Prosperity is so ban-worthy. I'm so glad they banned this card. It makes certain strategies that aren't that consistent way too consistent. Stun being chief among them. And it's just way too accessible for any deck to be able to use. 100% ban-worthy. Merly, I think, is still definitely the right ban for tier limits. Stops Sprend from just dumping it into the graveyard. Stops Elf from reviving it. Sprend and Elf are not ban-worthy on their own. Allows the deck to still have Kick Close, which is a core component. I think tier limits would be a lot more boring if they had 1 or 3 Merly and 0 Kick Close, as opposed to 1 Kick Close and 0 Merly. I also do not think that we are at a point where Merly can just be unbanned and put at 1 with all the other tier limit stuff still around. Definitely not. This card needs to stay banned. Perla Rhino ended up getting banned because of the Crystal Beast trap card that searches field spells, and I get it. It is a little bit easy to set up in a deck that mills a lot anyway, but I don't think that interaction is too strong. This card actually got banned because of the Lightsworn FTK I mentioned up top. This was one of the hits to the Lightsworn Submersible Carrier Aeroshark FTK, which I think is really silly. I think if that was the intention, they should have just banned the Aeroshark. That nonsense aside, I think Perla Rhino is totally fine to come back at 1, honestly. Branded Expulsion, you all know by now how I feel about this kind of effect. I'm really glad it's banned. Let's put Sanctifier on here too. Kelbeck, I mean, yeah, all this Ishizu stuff, if you played, you know, while these were legal, it's really easy to see why these were like way too good. The milling ones especially. Oops. So yeah, I think those should stay banned. I think we only have 1 more card, 2 more. Ryzeal Cross. I actually think this was the right hit. At first it sounded really weird to ban this card, but the alternative is to just limit like every Ryzeal main deck monster, which they pretty much did anyway. And also Detonator while still having this be legal. This was kind of the Merly hit, I think, of Ryzeal. I think you could even unlimit a lot of the Ryzeal monsters. We'll talk about that in a second, because we are going to go through the limit and semi-limit list too. But I think you could unlimit a lot of the Ryzeal monsters while keeping this banned, and it would still be fine. I think this was the correct hit. I actually really like this hit. The last one on the ban list here is Malice Red Ransom, which, I mean, Malice was just a disgusting deck. Still is, but like, it needed a lot of hits, and I honestly think it should have been White Binder instead of Red Ransom. That might have made the deck a little bit too unplayable, though. I don't know. But one of them had to go, so if it's not White Binder, I think Red Ransom should stay here. Okay, we finally made it through all of the banned cards. Now, the limited and semi-limited lists are definitely a lot shorter, so those will not take as long to go through. So, starting with the Limbs of Exodia, I mean, realistically, there's really not much of a difference between these being at 1 and 3. Like, even if these were all at 3, just jamming 3 of each Limb of Exodia into your deck will not make the strategy more consistent necessarily. My other super hot take of this video is that I think Exodia the Forbidden Ones just be banned. I think it's a dumb alt-win con. I think it's 100% comparable to the Burn FTK cards. This card will never do anything interesting outside of like exactly FTKing. Now, granted, I know that now there's the Millennium Archetype and the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, and so now you do need Exodia for that, but for many years up until the release of that card, this card I think should have just been banned. I get why it's not. Of course, it's iconic to Yu-Gi-Oh, etc, etc. I just don't hold any value in that personally. When it comes to like actually thinking about the game competitively, that's like my first and foremost thought, and I just think the game would be better without these dumb FTKs, but apparently that's a hot take for this one exactly for some reason. Don't know why people bend over backwards to defend this FTK, cause my nostalgia, but sure, go for it. Harpy's Feather Duster is fine at 1. I think it's fine to just stay at 1, yeah. Card Destruction definitely needs to stay at 1. Monster Reborn could be at 3, this one doesn't matter at all. Solemn Judgment, I think it's fine to stay at 1, it's just way too good going first. This isn't as much of an issue in Best of 1, but in Best of 3, this absolutely needs to be at 1 for side decking reasons. Heavy Storm is fine at 1. Foolish Burial is fine at 1. Rhoda's fine at 1. I mean, a lot of these floodgates that are at 1 are fine to be here, or they could be banned either way. So that's true of Rivalry, it's true of Skill Drain. Goldstar constantly suffering for the sins of other decks. But as long as Malice is a thing, I think, yeah, this should stay at 1. Fossilina, like other floodgates, could be at 1, or you could ban it. I'm fine with either way. Allure of Darkness, also suffering for Malice's sins. For the time being, should probably stay at 1. Herald of Orange Light. This card has gone back and forth so many times, but it's been enough times now that I think this should probably just stay at 1. As long as fairy monsters are competitively viable and this is at 3, those decks will always have a significant edge over the rest of the meta. This card being at 3 was a lot of the reason why Sulfur Yummy was so good in particular. And of course, the last time this got limited was because of tier limits in the Ishizu cards. So, yeah, I think this one should just stay at 1 now. Herald of Orange Light goes in, it's a floodgate, 1 or 0, take it either way. 1 for 1. I think this card could actually be at 3 and it would be fine, just because a lot of decks that could make use of it don't. You do have to not only send specifically a monster from your hand to the graveyard, but sending a monster to the graveyard is part of the cost, meaning if your opponent's got like Herald of Orange or Herald of Arclight or something like that up, you can't even pay the cost. I don't know, I think it's fine if it stays at 1 as well, but you know, even decks like Snake Eye and Yummy that could very easily use this card just choose not to play it because they're already consistent enough without it. So I think this one would probably be fine if it was at 3. Pot of Duality just makes stun decks more consistent. This one's like Card of Demise, where it's kind of interesting, right? It's not directly, you know, one of those floodgates, but it does help those decks, and typically exclusively only those decks. So I feel kind of torn about these kinds of hits, but I think it's fine to be at 1 ultimately. Solemn Warnings at 1 for a lot of the same reasons Judgment was. Blaze Phoenix is at 1 because 2 of them are an FTK, so that's fine. Do I even need to say it? Do I even need to say it? No, it's said literally all the time on the internet. But because a lot of people will conflate me saying I like Master Duel, this is the dumbest thing that's happened to me so many times online. I say I like Master Duel, and people are like, oh, so you like Max C then? And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is a brand new sentence with an entirely different meaning. It's like that meme where, you know, a streamer will say, I love apples, and somebody's like, oh, so you hate oranges then. It's literally exactly that. So, because I apparently have to say it as somebody who likes Master Duel, yes, I would also love to see Max C banned. God, anyway. TG Hyper Librarian. I actually don't know if this card would be that much of an issue at 3. Like, the decks that are summoning it really typically only need the 1 copy anyway. I guess Synchron would probably summon out multiple copies. Maybe keep it at 1 just to be safe, but I also think if this were unlimited, it probably wouldn't cause any issues. I think 1 Day of Peace should be banned. Even though this card does not directly contribute to an FTK, it has only ever supported decks like that. This might be my least favorite card in the entire game. I hate 1 Day of Peace. There is no game where your opponent is resolving this card where they're not up to some stupid bullshit. And if nothing else, rather, it just drags the game out for literally 0 reason. Yeah, I hate this card. It should be banned, IMO. Herald of Arclight. I actually think this card should be banned. Hot take, I know. But, I mean, at this point, it's so easy to access for so many decks. Rituals with Mitsurugi are better than they've ever been. The Floodgate effect is super relevant. It's an Omni-Negate. For a long time, I think this card was completely innocuous and fine, but in 2026 Yu-Gi-Oh!, I do think Herald of the Arclight needs to be banned. Soul Piercer. This is one of those limits where it's like, I'm not sure if Soul Piercer at 1 is what's keeping Super Heavy Samurai from running amok, or if you could unlimit this and Super Heavy Samurai would be fine because it just got power crept. I'm more inclined to think it would be the latter, but maybe it is fine to keep this at 1 just to be safe. This one, I don't know. I could go either way. Gamma, I think, is definitely too strong to be at more than 1, especially given that even at 1, it still sees a ton of play. Obviously in Cool Tune, but if you look at top 10 rating duel decks per season, you'll see a lot more Gamma in upper rating duel than you will on anywhere else on Ranked Ladder, because I think a lot of the top players realize that this card is still that good. A lot of players would be like, oh, there's no way it's worth putting a vanilla monster like Driver into my deck for 1 Gamma. But again, that top echelon of players does realize that, yeah, that is 100% fine and totally worth it. So this card, I think, does need to stay at 1. It's way too good. Omega... Why is this at 1? Oh, so you can't summon multiple copies and rip multiple cards from your opponent's hands? What deck is summoning that many level 8 Synchro monsters? I think this card could probably be at 3 and it would be fine. Solemn Strike is another Solemn card that I think is fine to be at 1. Fairy Tail Snow, I think, is definitely fine to be at 1 as well. If at more than 1, it becomes a lot easier to mill. And then, yeah, then I think that becomes a little bit of an issue. I don't think it's ban-worthy, though. I think this card is fine at 1. Rap Hero is about to come to 3, which I think ultimately will be fine. Foolish Burial Goods got limited because of tier limit, although I think we're at a point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where Foolish Burial for Spell Trap cards should also probably just be at 1. There are so many Spell and Trap cards out there with graveyard effects now that I think we'll just keep it at 1 and be safe. I agree with that. Grass tastes bad. No. No, Grass I think could be at 2 and it would be fine. Because you don't really see that many Grass piles out there. I mean, yeah, you do see them, but they're not overrunning the meta or even close. And I actually really like Grass. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it does promote some interesting deck building that you wouldn't otherwise see. So I think this card could be at 2. But I get why it's at 1, and I get why people think it should be at 1. Amano Iwado is a Floodgate that should just stay limited. That's fine. Same with Border. Same with Tikvu. Callby should definitely be at 1. I think once other hand traps get banned, then we could talk about banning this card too. I mean, we can't even talk about banning it now. Callby is just way too strong. Not even just against hand traps, but it's obviously hugely detrimental against graveyard effects. But even outside of that, if your opponent ends up sending a monster to the graveyard that they need the effect later in the combo, you can just outright negate it. Also, using it on your turn and lasting through your opponent's turn is really strong. This card absolutely, I think, should be banned. I think Maxi being legal is the only argument you can make for having this card around. But even then, I think it's a little bit flimsy. Hoarded Drones actually went back to 1 relatively recently, and I get it for Yummy. Yeah, I think that's fine. I guess Sky Striker is also just a really solid deck right now. Extrav being at 1, I 100% agree with. I think at 3, this card would be way too good for the decks that can make use of it. Crosshair Designator, I think it's fine at 1. I actually think 1 is the perfect number for this card, because when this card was at 3, it was just too much. Crossout calling crossout was just way too goofy. You could make an argument for even banning this card, but I think having it at 1 is totally fine. Shifter at 1 is fine. Just a really impactful hand trap with a floodgate type effect. Ver Anaconda, I mean, the difference between 1 and 3 is really moot. It could be at 3. It's fine to be legal. It's definitely not overpowered in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! By any stretch of the imagination. Synchro Overtake recently got limited for a cool tune, which I think is fine. Oh my god, Flaunderies, the magnificent map. Listen, I hate Flaunderies. I despise Flaunderies. It is by far my least favorite deck to play against in the world. It's definitely up there. That said, as a Flu hater, there is no reason for this card to be at 1. The reason that Flaunderies map is at 1 is because Flaunderies is an unpopular and also cheap deck. So Konami doesn't really want you to buy a cheap deck. They would rather you spend money to get URs for another archetype. And because it's unpopular and a lot of people don't like it, you know, not many people are actually making a fuss about this card still being at 1. Well, I will make a fuss. Again, even as somebody who does not like Flaunderies at all, there is no world in which this card should be at 1. It should be at 3, for sure. And I think if you genuinely believe this card should be at 1 because you don't like the deck, because that is a really popular sentiment. If you actually think that, then I'm just telling you, you have no business creating ban lists. You really don't. If you're not able to separate that very simple subjective versus a more objective viewpoint of power level versus how much I like a deck, then you have no business being in ban list discussions. Runic Destruction. I think Runic cards are majorly hit for a lot of the same reason Flaunderies is. It's a relatively cheap archetype that is also very, very unpopular. So when it comes to Runic cards, it's just Destruction and Fountain at 1, and there's a bunch at 2. I think Fountain should be at 2. Especially now that we're in a world where SP Little Knight exists and is in, like, 70% of extra decks, and Little Knight banishing Runic Fountain just completely ends that deck strategy. I think the least we could do is give Runic a second copy of Fountain. And this is coming from somebody who, again, does not like Runic at all. If you're going to keep Fountain at 1, I think all the other Runic cards should be at 3. Runic is not too strong in 2026 Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm personally fine with either Fountain to 2 and keep the other restrictions, or I guess if you really want to keep Fountain at 1, then I say unlimit every other Runic card. Havness, I think, is totally fine at 1. Kiklos is also totally fine at 1. Soliak, yeah, this one could come back up to 3. I think it would be fine, but is also fine at 1. These tier limits cards being at 1, I think is fine just because of how easy they are to mill when they're at multiple copies. And Keldo and Rudora are also fine at 1 for the same reason. Magnum Hut's fine at 1. It's just a really, really good card. Tier Cash. This one, I think, could also be unlimited and it would be fine, but I also get why it's at 1. Ratesoth and... oh, Unicorn Semide, right? Pressure Planet Ratesoth. Would Kashtira be too good if Unicorn and Ratesoth were at 3? Fenrir at 3 made, like, almost no difference to Kashtira's impact on the meta. I think at the very least you could give them one more Ratesoth and nothing would happen. At the very least. But I actually think if Ratesoth and Unicorn are at 3, Kashtira would still be like, maybe tier 3, but probably just a rogue deck, honestly. Synchro Zone is a floodgate, fine to be banned, or, you know, whatever. Stake Your Soul was recently put on here because of VS. I think it's fine. Fine limit. Bonfire, if it absolutely needs to be at 1, yeah. Snake Eye Ash, I think this could be at 3 and it would be fine, honestly. I get why it's still limited, but I don't think Snake Eye has been pretty thoroughly power crept by this point, which is a wild statement to make, given how recently it came out and was the most dominant deck in the meta, but yeah, I think power creep happened that quickly in this case. I think Snake Eye Ash would be fine at 3. I really want Wanted to be at 3, but I get why it's at 1. Diabell Star is not just good for Snake Eye, but for a lot of different decks, and can even be used as an engine with like Dark Magician of Destruction. I think that's a lot of the reason why Wanted's still at 1. Yeah, I think it should probably stay at 1 for the exact reason of Dark Magician of Destruction, right? That makes sense. I think it's fine at 1. OSS could be at 3 and it would be completely fine. The only reason OSS even got limited was because of Snake Eye using Zombie Vampire to mill it to set up their plays after Beatrice got banned, but like, if you want to do that now, I don't think that's necessarily much better than like what tier 2 and 3 decks are doing right now. I think Shundra should definitely stay limited, and Songen summoning, and Kaiman. Tenpai is just like, yeah, it's the kind of going second strategy that's way too streamlined, and when they can afford to just spam their archetype plus every board breaker and hand trap under the sun, that's a little bit much. Oh, and then Alt Art Rhoda, yeah. Sword Ryzeal, X Ryzeal, these two, I think these could both come back to 2 at the very least, and it would be fine. Or I think you could unlimit Sword Ryzeal. X is a little bit different just because of the fact that it does set up your extract monsters in the graveyard as well. This I could understand being limited a little bit more than Sword. But Ryzeal has definitely, in its current state, really just been reduced to an engine that Mitsurugi sometimes uses. With the field spell banned, I think you could afford to get back a few of these main deck monsters. I think that as far as Malice limits go, it's totally fine to have all these names at 1. Malice as an archetype is just way too good. Way too good. It's not Cyber, it's not Splash Mage, it's just Malice being way too good. Look at Paper Play in TCG and OCG, where they banned Splash Mage and everybody cheered, and then Malice still just tops events left and right anyway. Yeah, no, these definitely need to stay at 1. And the field spell for sure. Mitsurugi Prayers was a great limit to the archetype. I love this so much more than the Habakiri limit, because Habakiri is so searchable and is once per duel anyway. The limit doesn't do anything except hurt pure Mitsurugi. But Prayers being at 1 affects pretty much anything using Mitsurugi, and is also a lot more impactful to Mitsurugi's plays. Oh, Alt Art Call By, Alt Art Pot of Extravagance. Dracatail, Lucius, and Rahu. I think limiting both of these might have been maybe a little bit harsh. I think Rahu to 1 makes a lot of sense. Lucius to 1 is like, this one could have been semi-limited and it would have been fine. And a Cupsy Yummy limit. I think it was fine. I actually like this more than limiting the Yummy Snatchy. Just because when Yummy Snatchy is at 1, it just... Yummy can barely do anything at that point. Especially as a pure deck, but... Cupsy Yummy being at 1, being the best Yummy mid deck monster makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so let's briefly look at the semi-limits real quick. Necroface is at 2 to stop FTKs, I think that's completely fine. DD Dynamite is at 2 to stop FTKs, I think that's completely fine. Joel Knockbird is at 2, this could debatably be at 1 or even 0, and I'd be totally fine with that. I think at the very least it's limit worthy. Joel Knockbird used to be a little bit more niche of a hand trap, but nowadays... there are just so many decks that do so much searching that it's really, really good. Red Reboot. This one's really, really weird because it is way strong against trap-based decks, and yeah, when it's at 2 or 3, it's a little bit too easy to access, but for best of 1 format, even when trap decks are really prominent in the meta, you actually don't see this card teched that often. It might be because it's a UR. I think this card could be limited and it would be fine. I think it's fine at 2. I think it would honestly be fine at 3. But if it got banned, I would also completely understand. This is a really weird card where it could be at any number of legality, and I would just kind of be like, that makes sense. I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about Red Reboot. This is a really weird one for me. Parallel Exceed is about to come back to 3, and yeah, of course, this card is completely fine. Mathmech has not been an issue for way long, and even then, Parallel Exceed was not the main culprit, but it's also been way too long since Mathmech was a problem. Branded Fusion, I think, can just stay at 2 for now, with Branded about to get more support. Putting this at 3 might be a bit too much. There even could be a world where this needs to get limited again, just because of how good Branded is with the follow-up support, but for the time being, I think 2 is fine. So here we have more runic spells, and I'll say the same thing I did when we talked about Fountain. I think you should either keep Fountain at 1 and unlimit every runic spell, or you can keep the restrictions on stuff like Tip, Curses, and Slumber if you just put Fountain back up to 2. That's my take on it. Shyren, I think is totally fine at 2. Unicorn, we talked about this earlier. I think this end rates off could be at 3, and Cashier would still be like a rogue deck, honestly. Raisin, I think is fine to be at 2. Zhao Long is fine to be at 2. This semi-limit mattered a lot more than you might think, honestly. Engraver is really interesting because Engraver has been limited, I think, in both TCG and OCG. But in Master Duel, I don't know if it actually does need to be limited. I don't know. It's weird. Because Fiendsmith is really good. But it's not like overrunning the meta. It just kind of shows up every now and then. It's kind of like Bystials in that regard. Or Millennium, although obviously way better than Millennium as far as generic engines go. If you want to take an argument for Engraver being limited, I would definitely hear it out. But I also think it's kind of fine at 2 right now. Treasures of the King is a really weird semi-limit in the grand scheme of things. I think this card could be at 3, it would be fine. Habakiri semi-limit, I get, but at the same time, it's like, I think Prayer's limit was enough. I think this could come back to 3, but maybe not, I don't know. It's whatever, either way, honestly. I think we just have a few more cards to talk about. Yummy Snatchy being at 2 makes a lot of sense to me. Because 2 is what you need to be able to combo. Having the third one makes it really, really easy for the Yummy deck to have follow-up plays. So I think the semi-limit here was actually smart. And same with the Marshmallow semi-limit. This is one of Yummy's best starters, no matter what variant it is. Like if you open Marshmallow, you're always going to begin by special summoning it. So I get why this was semi-limited. And same with Jokul. Having this in your hand with any level 5 monster is obviously really good, so making that happen a little bit less often, I think makes sense. Alright, so that is the entirety of the ban list. Wow, we went through the whole thing. Definitely took well over an hour. Holy. I thought it was going to be shorter for some reason, but now that I'm thinking back, I think our previous videos were around this length too. So, yeah, now that we've gone through and discussed the ban list, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, I know ban list discussions can get really contentious, so I'm going to please ask that you remain respectful, but yeah, especially if I was wrong about any of these and I missed a really obvious like FTK or combo that would make any of these cards a problem, definitely feel free to let me know. That is something I want to hear for sure. But I think for now, that's going to go ahead and do it. Thank you, as always, for watching. Super appreciate your support. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to our outro so that we can thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.